Hi guys, welcome to another episode of QQ. This is going to be a discussion on Black Mass, starring Johnny Depp. My name is Paul Weston, and over there, I always don't leave enough room, but over there is Mitchell Allen. I forget which... and yeah, so as I said, we're going to do discuss the film Black Mass. It's in theaters right now. The very quick synopsis of our review, because I really don't think you need a synopsis of the film because you've probably seen it if you're here. Mitch gave it a probably B-, maybe C+.
Yeah.
So okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna pin you down real quick. B-, C+. Pick one.
I'm gonna say B- because I liked it.
Okay, so B-. I gave it, as I said, the weakest C+ I could give it. So it's just still C+, but yeah, it's just not, you know, I didn't want to give it C+, but I knew it probably deserved at least that. The strengths and weaknesses that we essentially both gave it, we both liked the performances. Mitch thought the other aspects of the film were stronger than I thought, and ultimately we both had sort of, our main issues with it were sort of story structure and sort of the lack of capitalizing on really sort of really interesting original material. So with that, knowing that those are sort of our strengths and weaknesses, Mitch, why don't you start us on our sort of first topic, that being, is Johnny Depp's performance doesn't merit watching this film?
Okay, yeah, sure. By the way, if you wear me down during the course of this discussion, can I change my grade?
Oh,
is that a
sure.
thing?
Yeah, that's fine.
Locked in.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sure. I've changed my grade at the end of the video.
Yeah, because it, you know, it could be 3 months from now, and then I'll look at this and I'll be like, I hate this movie, but probably not. Yeah, does it merit watching the film? I think it does, just because I don't know. Well, so the first couple minutes of the movie, you know, the title comes on, and then, you know, goes to the. If you've seen the film, you know how the structure works. It goes to the first of 8,000 like interrogation room interviews, and you know, the guy just looks up, and like the line I have in my head, you know, maybe the dialogue's different in real life, but the line I have in my head is, well, this is what we did. This is what happened in South Boston, and then it goes back to whatever that scene is, and then so it starts off like sort of in a calm, like, okay, we're going to unfold the story from A to B format, and you see Jesse Plemons, then he gets in a fight, and then there's a thing. And as soon as Johnny Depp's face comes on the screen, there's like an energy to it that it just, like, I think there's a life that's sort of like, you know, a light goes on, and all you can do is think, what does he do next? And the film probably becomes, like, predictable as to what he does. Spoiler alert, he kills. That's what he does next. That's the next thing he does. He just kills.
Literally, that's all he does.
But in between all of the murder, when you're watching him, there is like a pent-up energy where you're not sure if he's planning his next move or if he's just observing in order to make his next impulse, you know, count that much more. And I feel like that sort of that play between being like a very calculating person and someone with just, you know, psychopathic impulsive tendencies is, I think, where that shading comes in. And I don't know if it's the writing necessarily of that character, but I think it's mostly Johnny Depp bringing that unpredictable sort of mysterious persona. And I think without Depp behind it, yeah, sure.
Here's a question. So I'll frame it a little easier for you. That Pawn Sacrifice movie. Have you seen the trailers?
I still haven't seen. I've seen trailers though.
Okay, so you've seen trailers. I haven't seen it either. If you had to make the decision right now, would you, you know, if you had some like a mind eraser thing, would you erase Black Mass in your mind and go see Pawn Sacrifice on the chance that it's better, or would you hold on to Black Mass? Right, like basically, like, would you go?
Are you asking because Pawn Sacrifice is another biopic?
Yeah, that's totally why.
Okay, because my answer to that is okay. Sure, my answer to that is like skip both and see Love and Mercy, which I think is one of the better biopics I've seen in a long, long time. Okay, and Sure. So you're saying pawn sacrifice or this?
Yeah, like, and like, would you
yeah.
would you risk losing this memory in the idea that, you know, pawn sacrifice is probably a better movie or not? Because that's what I'm curious about. Like, do you think Johnny Depp's performance is worth saving at the cost of losing something else?
I understand what you're saying. In the general scheme of, like, you know, all the movies a lot of us will ever see or I will ever see, could I lose it? Of course, for sure. But I'd say the present state of movies, and, you know, there's a lot of the same coming out, and a lot of the Oscar baity stuff is going to come out now, and, you know, there's going to be the Danish Girl and the Martian and this and that. I feel like the ability to see Johnny Depp at near, not the top of his game, but near the top of his game after years of, like, The Tourist and Dark Shadows and all of that is worth bringing yourself to see this story. And also, even if the movie's not that great, which it's not, which we talk about, having the awareness that someone like Whitey Bulger exists, and maybe just going to Wikipedia to look him up, because I did that a little bit, and I mean, I think it could have done the film. Sorry?
The film was worth the $12, the performance?
Yeah. I think it was worth, if not $12, $8.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's a good.
Like,
that's
on a Tuesday, on a half price Tuesday, for sure. On like an AVX, $15 to $20, no, of course not.
That's elegantly put, Mitch. I think I agree with you. Like, because thinking this idea, I wasn't sure, because, you know what, Johnny Depp's performance is very good, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, when he has those moments, like, I'm not kidding when I said that the review, like, the two best scenes in the film are literally in the trailers. The family recipe, and when he tells his kid, like, you know, just beat up the other kid when no one else is looking. Like, those are the two best scenes. And so, like, I could have seen it for, like, free. But even then, Johnny Depp does that thing that a lot of actors, especially the ones that we work with at our level, struggle a lot with, and that's just listening and sort of being there, like the whole screen presence. And honestly, when I think about it, it's been a long time since I've seen an actor just be able to sort of sit there, and you kind of just, it's the screen presence. You just kind of look at him, and, like, you know that he's present and he's listening. And to my actor friends, I would be like, yeah, you know, this is probably worth. It's definitely worth the $18. The $8. The, you know, $15.
But that I get for sure.
But so, I guess for my actor friends on a Tuesday, okay, I guess you can go and see it. But I just think of all the other performances that he's had that are so good, and it's kind of really interesting, because this film is definitely in that sort of sticky area where it's not bad by any means, but, like, it's also, like, you know, you got a finite amount of dollars, and it's just, like, you know, pawn sacrifice. I also love chess, and I find Bobby Fischer pretty interesting, and it's just, like, the things that happen to him is just heartbreaking. So I'm really hoping it's going to be interesting. But there's just so many other biopics that have to do with crime, and, like, other films that are, like, you know, like Godfather and, like, Goodfellas, and it's really sort of not convoluted, congested, and so it's just it's so hard. Like, this film, which is good transition actually, is like, this biopic doesn't do anything in particular to be especially interesting, right? Like, Johnny Depp has some pretty cool scenes, but I mean, as I said in the review, I felt like a lot of this, for most of this film, by about minute 45, minute 60, and he kills one person, like, right off the bat in the front. You're like, and they do, like, the whole, oh wow, he's dangerous. You know, you always kind of have to have that sense of, like, excuse me, of the whole stakes of that. Like, if anyone kind of messes with him, you know, there's a legitimate possibility he will just go and beat the living crap out of somebody. And then the last time I had sort of an actual sense of tension was when he has that scene where he stands up from the bar and goes, "Look, Steve, Johnny, whatever the guy's name is,"
when,
goes like, "Take your shot, but if you, like, you know, if I get up, I'm gonna kill you," right? Those are not the exact words, but that's a summation.
No, but essentially what the scene is about. Yeah,
and that was kind of interesting. And the preceding sort of scene where, like, he goes, we need to find suitcase or whatever, and then we bring them out. That was when I was still had like kind of interest and intrigue, and then he kills him. Like, okay, that's wow. He really means business. He's willing to kill off one of his thugs like that. Okay, cool, I get it. But it was the one after that where he's just like, hey, someone sneezed on him, dead. Oh, hey, someone said that they didn't say anything about him. Oh, right. He said, oh, by the way, he might have blue eyes, and he kills him. It's just like after that, the story becomes repetitive. The instant there was any tension to anything, I knew that person was going to die. There was no, it was no, oh, maybe they might not. And like the only time, and I think you actually brought it up when we were discussing it, is that the only time I ever felt like, ooh, maybe not, is when, is through Johnny Depp's performance, and where he creates that sense of like, he's so good at where he's aware and he's staring at the other actor. You can tell he's sort of there with a screen presence, but you can't read him. You can't tell him if he's going to or not going to. And it's like that in itself, he has the merit to be able to do that through like 5 scenes that end with the same way of he's going to kill them. That's pretty impressive in itself. But the story is still so fucking repetitive and so predictable.
Yeah.
And it's just that for me, it's the whole lack of thematic drive that just stops this from being interesting and special, right?
Well, Well, I think part of the issue is that it does the thing that like, and there are so many biopics. I think recently, probably more so, that do this, but I'm sure you look like in the last 30 to 50 years, and what they end up doing is that there's so much real life material, and I think I read like some Slate article recently that said like Black Mass is actually pretty accurate about all this. And it's like, that's fine, but it does this thing where it takes all of the real life material and everything that's presented to them, and it just goes, let's put it in. This is interesting. Let's put it in. This is interesting. And it doesn't like choose a vantage point or assert like a perspective on it that would make it a really unique film. It's just sort of a retelling of events done with a tense tone and with a very good lead performance and some, nice period detail, but nothing where you go, well, this is a film I'll remember for, for this reason. Like you sort of remember it for Johnny Depp being scary, but you don't remember it because of Whitey Bulger's antics in South Boston. Like, I would say 3 years from now, if I told someone like Black Mass has Johnny Depp in it and they're like, what's it about? I'd be like, Whitey Bulger, maybe he was from Chicago. I don't know. Like who knows, right? Like it could have been 8 other crime movies. Like I think that's probably, I agree with you there in terms of just, it doesn't distinguish itself enough from everything else.
What it feels like is like when there's like the tension and everything, it's well done. Like that's not what I'm saying. But it feels like a 5-year-old kid who goes, and then this happened, and then this happened, then this happened.
See, I don't think it's like that, because I think the one thing they could have done that I'm glad that they didn't go overboard was with those interrogation scenes. Like, even though they are pretty flat and it's like half a sentence and then you jump back, it's better than the alternative, which a lot of movies do, which is like sit in that interrogation room and is like, well, we were sitting by the bench and this guy came over and boy, you should have seen that. And then he goes on for like 2 minutes about that. And then you see what happens. At least this way they sort of did present it in a present tense and then came forward to like lend a bit of like an ominous air to what was going to happen.
Well, the thing
so at least they didn't go that far with that, which would have annoyed me. But
I guess like when I was listening to you, and I thought you made a good point. Like for me, it's like they presented something and they presented it fairly well in terms of like cinematography and score and all that. But they presented the what, but not sort of what it means.
Yes.
Or like why is it important? And I think that was the main question that sort of escaped throughout most of the film. Is like why is this important, or why do we need to see this? Why does this scene? Why does this film deserve to live compared to the 8 other crime scenes, right? Or crime films?
Why couldn't there be another Whitey Bulger movie just about him and John Connolly, and then you sort of see some of the other characters, but mostly you get to realize the dimension of John Connolly, Whitey Bulger, and maybe Morris for a little bit, because there's something interesting there too. But why couldn't have just focused on that and not gone from like Jesse Plemons to Peter Sarsgaard to Dakota Johnson to Benedict Cumberbatch, and then you're like, well, we know he lived a full life, but maybe some of these people aren't that interesting.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Yeah. And like you and I, you're the one that brought this up. It was like the only idea that we have. An idea of like sort of the thematic through line that maybe we're hoping for was the title, right? It's the Black Mass, where it's like I get this really cool image started from like I was about to mention this film that most people probably haven't seen, but anyways, I digress. The image of like this big black ball of mass, and it just slowly consumes everything. And like if the film went with each and every one of these characters, Johnny Depp's character, like Whitey Bulger, has sort of, no matter who he touches and who he talks to, he always creates, he either consumes them or he creates a certain destruction, whatever. Like I can see that happening, and like that could be like the whole theme of like this is a man, this is a character that just no matter what happens, destruction follows him. And it kinda mentions that, but because it's with like each character, it only barely touches the surface. And I guess that my guess, as a recently graduated student film, so like what do I really know? Is that with the relationship with John Connolly, is that they could have taught on that exact black mass consuming theme line, that which one gives me a great image, and two, I think is essentially what the filmmaker was trying to do, is that you could take that relationship and just really focus on the different details and like go on like a hour and a half sort of depth to it, right? Because like John Connolly, he starts off as a fairly interesting but fairly honest character that like he wants to do right by his neighborhood, but he sort of loses his way by being around this this Johnny Depp fellow, and he ultimately loses his way. That's interesting, right? And like he could have, you don't need to talk to like 6 other characters and sort of repeat that. And he goes, oh, by the way, Johnny Depp kind of destroys their lives.
Yeah, exactly.
He could have just gone through a much more sort of thorough, interesting look, and that's what this film could have done, right? And I guess that makes me sad, because you have 2 really good actors that you could have done it with.
Joel, by the way, I learned this the other day. His name's not Edgerton. I thought that was Edgerton for the longest time, but apparently it's Edgerton.
Edgerton, okay.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for the audience, please,
exactly.
Please take that knowledge with you. No, but I mean, I find Joel Edgerton right now is like one of the more reliable character actors, because again, it's someone who can commit and doesn't overplay things, and really seems to understand sort of the deeper motivations of the character, but doesn't really, spill that too much through his performance, and lets it sit, in the subtext. And I think there's a lot of subtext to that character, but unfortunately, it's the way that the narrative is set up with him that's the problem. And when you talked about how like this black mass could infect him, and we could see that journey, and I think we do see that journey for sure. The problem is, and with a lot of this film, is that it sort of speeds up the getting consumed part, and then it like sticks in like the he's already corrupted part for like 2/3 of the movie. Whereas I would have almost wanted to, maybe in real life it did progress very quickly and he got embroiled in too much, but almost from the outset, from the first scene that he's like, Kevin Bacon's like, why are you doing this? Like, he's going to screw us over. He's like, don't worry about it. You're like, oh, he's already corrupt. Yeah. Whereas if it feels more like a loyalty, or feels more like a more noble intention right off the start, and then it slowly starts to erode, it feels, that would be a better journey. It'd be more compelling. It would lead us, a little bit better through a 2-hour narrative, rather than, we already know what's happening, and then an hour in, we're like, well, it'll continue to happen this way.
Yeah,
that's about it.
At this point, I'm just waiting for people to die, right?
Yeah. But they die. Like they really, yeah, it's violent. That's the one thing with this movie. If you are okay with the violence, you're gonna be fine. If you're not, there's some pretty scary shit.
I think you made a really good point. Like that's part of the power of cinema is that we can control, sort of we can extend and compress time. Right. So even if in real life the transition from good intentions, but but sort of misled to corrupted was very quick.
Mm-hmm.
In cinema, we can find those moments, we can find those scenes, we can take those things and extend them, right? So I feel like it's on the onus of the it's the filmmaker's job to find ways to extend that and make that be the most interesting part, right? And like that's our jobs as inspiring filmmakers is to take those parts and learn how to manipulate our craft to do so. Because you nailed it on the head. It's just like the journey is so quick and so sudden, and then we just sort of watch them like muck around in the black mass for like an hour, and then there's very little stakes because I know that if someone gets caught by jail, or if they look at them and like accidentally like blink or get something in their eye, they die, and it's just sort of like it's when a film doesn't have stakes for me, it just becomes boring.
Well, it's how it presents those stakes, and so I guess that probably leads us to like where we're going next, and eventually this film has to come to an end.
Yeah,
and it does and I think you probably said this more than I, but I think I agree with you. The more I think about it. It ends in the quickest, like, most calm way
anticlimactic.
possible. Yeah. And, well, not necessarily that it's anticlimactic, but the way they present it is just sort of like, well, this was coming, and here it is. And there's no, like, that's the point of the movie where I really could see some commentary or some thematic statement or something where it's like, this will build up the tension till it's just bubbling, and then all of a sudden it dissolves. And finally he will be caught or discovered or something, and everything will pay off, even if it doesn't really pay off in real life. Like something will just happen that makes the film matter. Right. And
well, why don't
sure. I mean, you can
let me just quickly sort of frame it for the people watching. Mitch and I sort of, I actually had to sort of retell Mitch what the climax was because it sort of just passed him by because it was such a sort of a strange, low-key kind of thing. But like what we essentially see the climax as is the scene where Morris, after having talked to Connolly, being like, all these antics that Bulger are doing, they're going to get us killed, or like, if not, figuratively in terms of our career, like, or not in real life by Whitey himself. It's going to be, our careers are going to be destroyed. And Connolly, throughout most of the film, like he always does, is, don't worry about it. And so after that scene, he goes and meets these newspaper heads, or these media heads, and basically say, like, look, I can give you the story of Whitey Bulger and why he's never caught, but you can't lead this back to me. And then they're like, don't worry about it. And it happens. So the climax of the scene, of the movie, is done by a minor character, and the climatic moment is a minor character, Morris, spills the beans on our protagonist. And what's so strange about that is, like, one of the 101 things you learn about filmmaking is that generally, 99.999% of the time, you want your protagonist to do something to create his own success or demise. So like in like Shakespearean tragedies and everything, like Macbeth, he ignores the witches, gets himself killed.
Right.
Hamlet, goes and kills his family and everything. Right. It's like that's a much more traditional and usually more cathartic climax. And it's where there's the whole play, the whole film builds up to a particular moment, and then the character, either in tragedies, follows through with their tragic flaw, or makes a decision, or changes and makes the correct call. But with this film, Johnny Depp's not even in the room.
But do you know what? Like, I think that's again, it's the problem with the true life story is that they're trying to get, and I could tell that this guy is trying to get as close as possible to accurately portraying what it's like in the White Hill Gang, and then also, what happens in terms of, his ultimate downfall, and not having it be as tidy as, well, he insults someone, and then that someone finally gets grabbed by the police, and finally it all goes down, is that it sort of just happens incidentally because of everything that he's done. Mm-hmm. However, there's a way to ramp that up, because I can almost guarantee that towards, like, that section of his career, I think it's, the 90s at that point? Like, there's at least 30 to 40 years of just oppressing everyone that he's worked for, and there could be a moment where you show a couple people just getting either fed up, or you can see the frustration between that relationship, and it's more strained than just a workman-like relationship between, his not henchman, I don't want to say that, but maybe his henchman, and him. And if you were to sort of, transition from in the beginning where he's all, leading the gang and they're all murdering everybody and it's super fun apparently, and then it sort of gets a little wearying as it goes along, then there's an emotional arc to follow, and then that incidental spilling of the beans can seem more tragic. But right now it just sort of feels like everything's great and he's on the top of the world, and then it's going to happen, and then a guy says something and then he leaves, and then he has to leave town because everything just came crashing down at the same moment. But what we know about people like this is that it's coming to them. It's inevitable. And so you have to sort of work that into the narrative and the tone.
Yeah. And I do think they had something there where it's, I believe the henchman's name is Steve. Yeah. Where he kills Steve's love interest, who also happens to be a stepdaughter.
Oh, yes, right.
Where, sure. And I thought it was a really kind of interesting moment, where I can't remember what the question the interrogator asks, but it's like, overall, what did you think of Buddy Bulger? Like, do you think he was a good guy, a bad guy? And it just puts a cut up and a close up, and he doesn't say anything. I thought that was an interesting moment. And I feel like maybe that's the moment. Maybe that's the moment that we're looking for. But like for a climax, I think you were right. Like we need something that was like. The problem is that there's like two storylines, and he's over here, and like what he affects this.
There's about like 20 of them.
Well, like
the problem.
I meant like more like the the gang, and then the FBI, and like the FBI is the one that also creates the climax, and Whitey Bulger's over here all the time. But even if there's like something over on this sort of storyline that could have, I don't know, been indicative of like. Of the strain that you were talking about, and it could have basically said like, because I really like the whole idea that you and I were talking about, was just like, no matter how many people you kill, no matter how destructive you are, if you go down this route to try and save yourself, you're still going to end up with nothing, as if you got caught, right? Because like that to me is interesting, right? And I feel like ultimately that's what Whitey Bulger's story is about, is that like he tries so desperately not to get caught and lose everything that inadvertently he destroyed everything himself, right?
Yeah.
And that's but the problem is that like the climax doesn't really show any of that, and it's just like I did mention to you before, like I thought there was something interesting, and that there could you could do something with sort of like almost a fizzle kind of climax.
Well, the only interesting thing they also do now that I'm thinking about it is it ends. Like, before there's, like, a little epilogue where he walks out of a hotel in, like, super slow motion, and then the FBI does get him, and he's, like, 70 years old. But right before that is this scene. He's in a phone booth, and he calls... Is it his brother, or is it... Yes, it is his brother, right? Yeah. Okay. So it's Benedict Cumberbatch, who is good in this movie, actually.
Yeah.
Not given much to do, but he's good.
Yeah.
But he calls him...
You say with most of the actors in this movie, to be honest.
Yeah,
pretty good,
there's a lot of really... strong character actors in this, and they're given like a little bit to do. The worst offender is Adam Scott, and I mean he's so good you could give him like anything, but anyway, whatever. But in the phone booth scene, like what he doesn't do, which I imagine most films would have tried, is like, hey man, I just gotta tell you, this is not a Whitey Bulger accent, by the way. I'm just putting on a different voice, but just like, hi, you know, good to see you. I'm going away. I'm really sorry for everything, and you know, if it puts strain on you, then I apologize. But you know, that's what happened. And then he would hang up, right? But in this scene, all he says is like, "How are you doing? You doing well? I'll be away for a little while. I'll see you soon." And he doesn't apologize, and he doesn't like admit any guilt. He just sort of knows that this is the next step, and he's going to leave, and he leaves it as that. And then he sort of go back to I think it's Benedict Cumberbatch, and he just sort of sits there and you know hangs up the phone, and that's it. And considering their family and how much he's fought for him and how much he's done, like there's no self-awareness still on Bulger's part that he's done anything of consequence to other people. It's just he's screwed up and he has to leave. I don't know. I'm not.
I read it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just sort of what I picked up from that, and it seemed interesting. And I wonder if that was the intention, or what are you gonna say? What do you say? Yeah.
Often, like what I was told by a lot of like the people who taught me acting, stuff like that. So hey, teachers, paid attention.
Good.
Is that like the best acting there is done in silence, right?
Yeah.
And there's I thought some of like the best sort of like silent acting of the film in this phone call. And I remember one particular line that Benedict Cumberbatch says, and like, yeah, you do like the whole hi, how are you? Good, great. You know, how's the weather over there? But then he says like, are you sure you want to do it this way? And then I think Whitey Bulger says something like, is there any other way? And then Benedict Cumberbatch just kind of like he kind of just sits there and he goes, okay, I get it, right? And for some reason I maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I felt like that was sort of like Jimmy's or Whitey Bulger's sort of way of just saying like, I fucked up, and I'm sorry, and just the fact that he actually gave his brother a phone call, right? You could have called anyone else, and he could have called anybody else. He didn't have to call him, right? And throughout the entire film, he would literally kill somebody for sneezing at him, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm being again. I'm
I didn't being facetious, but I know what you're saying. It's just
But yet he makes the. I'm not sure if it's like they told like who listens to us, the NSA or whatever. Like I'm not sure it's at that level where like they can phone tap you and like know exactly where you are or whatever.
Oh,
right.
I see what you're saying.
Like I don't think it's at that point where like if he makes a phone call, they don't know where he is. But like it's still right. But he still makes the effort to call his brother, and have that sort of moment with him. Right. He didn't have to, and he was super selfish the entire film, but he made that phone call. I think. Probably 80% for his brother and 20% for himself, of like getting some closure, right? So it's interesting that you and I took that scene. We both read it kind of differently, but
I don't know. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but I still feel like he's so close to really connecting, and I feel like he just sort of bypasses that, and then he misses his shot. I don't like. I feel like maybe you're right that he is trying to. Like not warn his brother, but sort of apologize in a way. But he doesn't. I don't know that he does it overtly enough that it would be satisfying to him. Do you know what I mean? Like if you got a call from your brother, and your brother, mass murdering brother, mass murdering brother had done a number of things. Sure, it's great that he calls, but he's just gonna go, right? I mean, he's just gonna go and leave and not face the consequences, and then you might have to face the fallout of that when he leaves, and then he's gone. I mean, sure, it's nice that he calls, and it is obviously a gesture of familial relationship, but I don't know. For me, it seemed like it wasn't satisfying to him, and I found that interesting. But maybe that's just reading the scene and trying to read the scene for something deeper, and it could have just been, how they wanted to end the movie with let's bring Benedict back in.
Yeah.
He needs more work.
Let's hear that wonderful voice of his.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's largely what I have on this film, and this discussion that we had didn't really change my mind on anything. In fact, it kind of cemented everything. Where it's like pretty good performances, but ultimately there was just a lot of sort of other fundamental issues I have with the film. So I'm still on a weak C plus. Maybe it's strengthened just a little bit because the performances admittedly are pretty good, but it's still definitely a weaker C plus. What about you? Are you cemented on your B minus, or are you?
Yeah, I am. Like, the more that I think about it, I enjoy it, and I think maybe I'm appreciating the fact that there's like a really great film trapped under this movie.
Yeah.
But it's not like so far down that I'm like, what a wasted opportunity. I think it's like a good try, and I think with a more maybe with a different director or a different writer even, because I mean, Scott Cooper did Crazy Heart, I guess many years ago, and it was, what I was shocked by is I had heard about it, and I like Jeff Bridges, and I figured I'd try it, but I was shocked by how specifically it captures the angst of like an aging musician, but not in a cliche like, I'm old and I gotta make myself count way. Like, it really gets into a specific character's head and a relationship between him and Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it doesn't pander, and it felt really fresh, and I don't know, like, it's a very well structured, like, focused movie, and you compare it to this, and you sort of think like, well, is it a studio thing that maybe mucked this up? Is it a rewrite thing? Like, I don't know. I would have to see the next thing this guy does, almost like by himself or wherever it may be, and just determine whether it's, Crazy Heart was like a fluke, or if it was just this movie was,
Without having seen either of those films, my guess on this particular film is that it's a script thing, and that if the guy finds another really good script, I bet you that the film will be pretty good. But that's just from viewing this one film. That's my guess, if I had to. Any parting thoughts before you finish your first ever QQ, my friend?
Oh my! This is my first ever. Well, first of all, thank you. This is super fun. Go guys, go see Crazy Heart. I really like it. I hope you will too. And also, I find like what I wish this were a more unique biopic, because I mentioned this earlier in the discussion, but Love and Mercy, which is about Brian Wilson, and it is very specific, and it's got a really unique tone and sense of purpose, and the way that it handles its characters, I think, obviously it feels very true to life, but it also has a perspective. And I think, hopefully there's just going to be more biopics that reflect,
Steve Jobs.
That's Steve Jobs.
I'm so hopeful.
We are still holding out so much hope for Steve Jobs.
Oh my god, I really hope it's good.
Love this trailer. It's just Fassbender acting the hell out of this trailer. This is like 2.5 minute clip, and everyone else looks like great, and I like Danny Boyle, so I'm like, oh my god, I really hope that's
the best
good.
film I see all year. I really do.
I already saw one, but maybe we'll talk about that another time. But that's anyway. Really excited for that one. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks again for watching us. And if Mitch can tolerate me, you might see him again. All right. Again, I'm Paul Western. And over there, because I know now, is Mitchell Allen. Take care, guys.
All right. See you guys.